overwhelm into manageable and practical tools for everyday use.
Woohoo!
We're back.
Yay! Welcome back, everybody. Episode 6, season 2. I don't know how many episodes we've done. I had to go back and actually count, to be honest with you. I was like lost in space. Anyway, welcome back. Catch me on the exhale.
Episode 6, I think this is.
It is. I literally had to go back and count.
Yeah.
How pathetic is that?
Yeah, that's all right.
So
we're rocking
we are
mustaches and what are these hats called?
berets.
Berets. Yeah. Yeah. We're rocking them. So you have to check out the YouTube video for and some nice dark eyebrows, which I wish I could.
Yeah, these are fake.
Yeah.
Even though they're like staying in the exact same spot perfectly.
It's
weird. Anyway, so we're having fun with Zoom today, as you guys can probably tell by we're all now Zoom professionals. Christina and I found some new features of Zoom, which is really fun. So now we have mustaches and eyebrows and hats for this fun little excursion we got going on here. And I have like a spot on my face somehow.
You do.
I don't know what's going on. It's weird. That doesn't normally, I don't know what that is. I want to like wipe the camera down.
I know. It's not on mine either. No, it's just your new beauty mark, I guess. It's a Zoom beauty mark.
Oh, yeah. You have one too. Oh, you have it too.
Yeah.
I can see one to the right of your left eye, right? Your left, my right.
Oh yeah.
You see it?
Yep, right.
Interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
So I would assume that some people are wondering why we're doing this via Zoom. Like we don't have anybody else with us. It's just the two of us. But we're doing this via Zoom because I am COVID positive, or I was like a weekend, a few days ago. But anyway, so I'm still in quarantine with my family in our not so big house. So but anyway, we're in quarantine, and so that's why we're coming to you guys from Zoom, because we wanted to keep recording because I feel good, I feel fine, but we wanted to visit with you guys and talk about some stuff that we have been dealing with in terms of our I don't know, through all this, right? The pandemic, COVID, testing positive, all this stuff. But let's start with our favorite thing first. Let's start with gratitude. You want to go first? You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Right.
I had a long day today at work, but you know what? I am grateful for some conversations that I had with some of my guys today. They were pretty cool. And I am grateful for the honesty that they have with me in their process and their recovery. And it makes me feel really good. It lets me know that I'm doing the right thing when they're honest with me and they can just be candid. So even though I got home late, I just, put us behind it. I'm very grateful for days like this where the toughness of it kind of falls second to the honesty and the good stuff. So overall, making
making a difference for people.
What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for time spent with my kiddos, because during this time of year, I usually don't have as much time. I'm usually going right from teaching to coaching. And then by the time I get home, it's, they're only awake for another hour or so. So I'm grateful that I got to spend some time with them over the course of the last week or so. Which, like I said, it doesn't happen that often. And we put up our Christmas accoutrement around the house. We have Christmas decorations everywhere. And our town is actually, a couple people in our town have taken to setting up like an old fashioned Christmas, so like next week we're going to the tree lighting, and then they're doing like a gingerbread house contest, and they're doing, like all that fun stuff, like holiday extravaganza. And so one of the things is decorating your house. So we were able to decorate
Ooh.
outside. Yeah. To hopefully be a part of the decoration contest, which is so exciting. But so Mark's been doing that, and I've been helping him out with that a little bit. So that's been fun. So just time spent doing some fun stuff. So I've been grateful. I am grateful for that.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So I guess we should get to it. So like what this episode is really kind of about is about um, our experiences in um, this type of atmosphere, right? Like me with quarantine with kids and not being able to go to work and what isolation is like for a lot of people and kind of how to address that for some people. So one of the things that I guess I'll just kind of explain what has sort of happened here at our house. Um, my kids are involved in activities outside our house, like after school and stuff like that. So my son happened to be at one of the activities that he's at, and um, we found out a couple days after that that he was wrestling, so close contact for sure, with a kid who ultimately tested positive. So the rules here are that we have to quarantine, um, or he had to quarantine for a certain period of time. And then he had to get tested in order to go back to school. But of course, he tested positive. So it turned out that the rest of us then had to start quarantining because we're all close contact, except people who are vaccinated, which my husband and I are both vaccinated, but our kids are not. So it was like a whole big um, ordeal of the past now 14 days. So it's from the time that he was exposed to where each of us then had to get tested. And my daughter's test came back abnormal, which was like a total, yeah. So Ray's test came back abnormal. She got tested the same day Mark did, and her test came back with like some crazy readout. So they basically said, so I called the lab. I'm like, what does this readout mean? And they're like, because I'm not educated in that. So I was like, what does that mean? So the lady at the lab basically told me that I have to call my doctor. And I'm like, well, the doctor didn't do this. It was a pharmacy. We had the test done. And she was like, well, your doctor can read the test for you. So we decided then to just take her to go get tested again. Cause it was like, we can't rely upon an abnormal result to then not know whether or not she was positive, because she was so basically because they are unvaccinated. When he tested positive, we had to test her in order to determine if we had to keep them apart. So if we kept them apart because she was negative and he was positive, then she could go back to school earlier than if we allowed them to be close contacts with one another within the house. So it became quite an ordeal trying to figure out. And for the first couple days, like we had to keep them separate. And my kids are like, they could not be more like on top of each other all the time. Like they're constantly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so it was it was quite a hassle, like the testing and the regulations and all that stuff. And not to say that obviously it is what it is, right? This is the world we're living in. And actually, Mark and I were talking about that today. We went for a walk, and we had to leave, but to get out of the house. So we went for a walk, and we were talking about it. And he's like, now that she's tested negative, if she comes back and tests positive, then like down the road, then it's going to be another whole other quarantine for her, and one of us is going to have to be there. But because Jax has now tested positive, he will not have to quarantine, so he'll be able to go to school and she won't. So one of us is going to have to stay home then too.
Oh,
So it's, yeah, yeah, it's not being vaccinated is a problem when it comes to, you know, quarantining and what's considered acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, so like Mark didn't test positive, he tested negative. So he was able to go to school
right.
because he's vaccinated. And even though he's a close contact, he's vaccinated. So he's considered to be protected. And so the transmission rate apparently through it, and I don't know the numbers, so I'm not even going to get close to that, but apparently they're not concerned about the transmission through a vaccinated person in this type of scenario. So he was able to go back to work, which, is fine. Um, I'm good actually, because he was able to then save some sick days for when, if and when she ever comes in contact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was that part of it has been sort of like a mental mentally draining. Um,
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily make all the sense in the world. Like as you're explaining it, it's kind of like a clusterfuck. And
I was just gonna say it felt like a mind fuck the whole time.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
And like even you and I talked offline about,
yeah,
the challenges in vaccination. And we don't even need to get into that because that's
yeah,
clearly not what we're here for. We're not here for all that. But
yeah,
just like the challenges alone that you're faced with, but yet you're home and like you're missing work and you missed the whole first week of basketball,
yeah,
which is heartbreaking for you. There's just so much shit that goes into all of this that,
yeah,
yeah, it's just a complete mind fuck. And
yeah.
I don't know
It's
how
for
you guys are doing it and surviving this, but
just plugging away
yeah,
day to day to day. We're
yes,
just figuring it out as we go along, I guess.
but you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I think the big thing at this point is that um like I feel bad for the kids, because like
mhm.
they don't they don't see anybody, and they have, at their ages, have no contact. Like Ray actually FaceTimed with one of her friends today because her mom like texted me and was like, "Hey, do you think Ray would want to FaceTime?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, it was only like 3 or 4 minutes, but they were,
That's good.
making faces at each other and stuff. And my friends like said to the girls as she was handing the phone over to her daughter, she's like, your mom and we didn't have this, like, when we were growing up, we didn't have this kind of like, we had to look at each other through a window or like go knock on the door or whatever. And I was
Yep.
like, yeah, we also didn't have quarantining when we
Yeah.
when we were this age either. Like, so
Yep.
we just met outside and played, like, I
Yep.
don't know. So it's just such a strange world that we're living in at this point. And, you know, like I said to everybody, I did not have to get tested last week, but I did because I felt like it would have been irresponsible of me, knowing the number of kids and number of people that I'm around on a daily basis because of my profession. I just felt like it would have been irresponsible to go to work potentially having been positive and be asymptomatic, because at that point I had no um, I had no reason to believe that I was positive, but at the same time, I was just worried that, like, what if I'm going to go to work now and take it with me and some kid's going to get sick? Like, so
Right.
I ended up getting tested to try to preclude that from happening. So I'm hoping that as I get back to normalcy a little bit, that uh, I will not get anybody sick.
Mhm.
And if I do, it'll just be your run of the mill head colds that we all get during the wintertime.
Right.
So yeah, so it's been a interesting, somewhat frustrating experience. Um, but like I mentioned before, one of the big things is that the first couple days is like, ooh, I don't have to go to work, woohoo! And I think, you know, like we had kind of talked about before, I am dealing with like first world problems, right? Like I'm a salaried employee, so I can use my sick time and still get paid. So I understand there's people out there, that this kind of quarantine and this kind of these limits, that are kind of being put on people are, directly impacting their ability to care for their families. You know what I mean? So I was in a position where I knew that I could get tested and it wasn't going to impact my ability to, you know, bring home my salary. Um, so, I'm fully aware of my, what's the word? I don't even know what the word is. My position and my, um, the benefits that come from that. Um, so I was more willing to go get tested and make sure that I wasn't sick or not, at least not getting anybody else sick. So,
Right.
um, yeah, but it's just been a fun um, experience being quarantined with my kids. Woohoo.
You learn a
So,
lot. You learn a lot during that being tested like that for sure.
ain't that the truth?
So, what are
So,
some things that you've been doing that you or the kids have been doing to cope with this and being together and being stuck in the house? Because obviously
mm,
they're not old enough to, and it's been freezing outside. So, you can't just send them outside to, play outside and freeze in 30, 40 degree weather. Um,
yeah, yeah. So day like 3 or 4, I did send them outside because I was like, that's it. I can't
yeah.
take it. Like, you guys got to get out.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm noticing is like my kids are still at the ages where they have to burn off energy, right?
Yep.
Like you and I could withstand just a relaxing day for like a 24-hour period and not feel like we struggle to go to sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas, 7 and 9-year-olds, they still need to like exert themselves to
Hmm.
burn off some of that energy. So,
Yeah.
um, so, so that was one thing. So definitely, figuring out things for the kids to do to burn off energy. And I think, not only burn off energy like physically, but mentally too. They need to be like
Hmm.
challenged mentally a little bit. Um, because there was a couple days there where I couldn't parent. I couldn't. I was like, yeah, you can watch TV all day. Yep. Turn the TV on. Bye. Like, um, and we have like a finished basement. Um, but let me say this: our finished basement is not huge, and our main floor living space is not huge. We have my husband and I have our bedroom on the main floor, and then the kids' 2 bedrooms are upstairs, which is where I am now. So if you're looking at the video and you're wondering why there's Marvel characters in the background, it's because I'm in my son's bedroom. Um, so everybody had to kind of be separated too for the first handful of days. So that was a challenge, but it was also good because nobody was arguing or fighting with each other.
Hmm.
Once we kind of allowed them to be back together, then the fighting ensued, which,
Hmm.
anybody who's got 2 kids or more knows that that's how it happens, how it goes, and why you wish for summer to be over quickly. um, but like other things, I don't know, like I spent a lot of time using my headphones, my AirPods. I would pop
Hmm.
them in and hook them up to my phone, and I would just play music like at any random time of the day, just to have a different, like to feel like I was separated from everybody. Like legitimately, like not being questioned or uh, proposition to do something or get something or feed me or help me with this, or you know what I mean, like that, having that sort of disconnect. Like I saw when my headphones were in, they were like real. I'm like, I can't hear you. Sorry. Like, sorry.
Not
Um,
right now.
Not right now. I have started to exercise a little bit more. Like Mark and I went for a walk. That was a big thing. A couple days, like you said, like the weather has not been good, so we are stuck inside. Um, so playing games with the kids, like engaging our whole family. Like we got out the old school board games and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so I did that quite a bit. The kids had schoolworks though. Their school is offering or has like 2 hours of tutoring each day that they're out on quarantine. And so they have work that gets sent home and then they have to do the tutoring. So they had to do that. Ray set up, I know I told you the other day, but Ray set up her
Hmm.
shop and I had to go shopping at Ray's shop like 38 times during the day. I don't know what day that was, Friday. I don't know. And she was like driving me batty. She's like, Mom, come down and shop. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my freaking mind.
Yeah.
Um, so like, doing stuff with the kids, but then I think also like having other things. Like I read quite a bit. I actually finished a book last week. Over the course of like 3 days, I was like flying through a book. So, that kind of stuff. But I think um I was so I was reflecting on the fact that when this quarantine first started, the pandemic in 2020, it
Mm-hmm.
was like springtime and the weather was like pretty cooperative for most of the pandemic. So it was like not the pandemic, but the beginnings of the pandemic.
Right.
So like it was mid-March and yeah, it was cold the first couple of weeks, but like then it got to be April and it was sunny and at least, here in the Northeast. So the experience was totally different
Yep.
um than this most recent quarantine that I've experienced.
Yep.
Um so I have experienced some frustration and anger with all the members of my family, and I think it's because like we're never together this much.
No.
So
Too much
yeah,
of anything.
yeah, yeah.
It'll
I mean,
aggravate the hell out of you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and like Mark and I get along great, and like I think there was a point where I went in the bedroom, like after the kids went to bed, I went in the bedroom and I was like reading and he was out in the living room watching TV and he's like, oh, you're going to read? And I was like, uh-huh. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I am. And he's like, maybe I'll come in there. I'm like, nope, no,
Nope.
no, no,
Mm-mm.
no, you won't.
No.
Like you stay out there just like for an hour. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah. So that kind of stuff, so coping has been an interesting experience.
Yeah. It's hard. It's
Yeah,
very hard.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely it. I think that's something, it makes me think of where I work and the fact that, you have 31 guys living in a residential facility that have no time or space to themselves ever. There's upwards of 4 people living in the same room. And when they're ready to lose their shit, they're like, I don't even know where to go and get privacy. So it's, come in my office, talk, vent. Where can I find space for them to just sit and decompress?
Yeah.
Um, and then you have something like COVID that we're still wearing masks all day long. The
Mhm.
residents aren't that great, but at the same time, we just had 9 positives in another program, but it's in the building right next to us. And they come to us to go to one part of our building. But so we have to be super careful. And if we have a COVID outbreak, we go into lockdown. So nobody leaves the building or they just leave for work and that's it. Um, and they're already isolated, like a lot of them only have each other, and they
Right.
don't even have each other because none of them trust each other. Few of them trust each other. Um, and then to go on for further restriction, it gets more and more difficult for them to manage and cope on a regular basis, and head into winter when you're inside more, and then head into the holidays when, relapses happen more. And it's just like, it gets more and more challenging. And the more we go through COVID, and going through your experience, not going through it with you, but like talking to you through this experience that you're going through, and then knowing what the guys go through, it's similar but different because, when they miss work, they don't get paid. If they're paying child support, they're screwed. They've got legal fees, they've got fines, they've got all this stuff that once again they're in the rears for, and they're trying to, you know, do right by their lives all of a sudden. Um, some of them haven't seen their families or friends in like years, and it's their first time in a halfway house, and they can actually get free time to be able to go out in the community, and now they can't because of COVID.
Right.
So it's all these things that play into it. And I think that's why it's important that we not only discuss the COVID aspect of everything, but also the isolation and like um, walking into the holiday season and how it looks different for everybody, from
Yeah.
kids behavior changing in the classroom to like these guys, the guys I work with, they're all in recovery, uh, have been battling addiction for years, sometimes a lifetime. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, for me, when it comes to them, I try not to just sweep it under the rug. I try and talk about it. Right before Thanksgiving, I had worked the Wednesday and we had this big group. And I was like, let's not, or Tuesday, I think it was. I said, me, I shoot from the hip. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We're not going to sweep anything under the rug. We got to talk about it.
Right.
How's everybody feeling about, this being their first holiday in recovery? Is anybody feeling anxious? What are we feeling? Let's talk about it. Everybody's talking about it. We're all engaging. And I'm like, listen, you're all here to support one another. At times, you guys are the most judgmental people that I've seen on this planet of one another. And yet in the same breath, you're all like, you don't understand the fragility of your recovery. So we all need to support one another through it, especially times like this.
Right.
And, realize that if you look to either side of you and you realize you're not that different than each other, this journey gets a lot easier.
Mm.
Um, so then we talked about like a couple things, and a lot of my, they all have coping skills. Like everybody talks about having a bunch of tools in their toolbox to take along, and I'm like, you've been through like treatment programs your entire life. Like, where do you think, what do you think didn't go right? Where do you think you slipped? Or what do you think we can improve on, strengthen, or what can we add to it? What can we switch up? What can we change a little bit? And I try and add the mindfulness piece of it. So for them, I always add, where were you last year? And a lot of them were homeless or in jail,
Mm.
um, heavily addicted. And this year they're working, they're in a halfway house. They're looking to complete soon to their own place. And it's
Right.
like, focus on that,
Yeah.
find some meditation that works for you, do some yoga, like
Yeah.
all this stuff, find support groups for whatever you need. It's all out there. Um,
It sounds, I mean, not to not to equate it in any way, but like, you know, you were making the point about like how if they just look around and see the people that are in, dealing with the same thing they are, like
mhm,
they could find support in that. I think that's an important piece, especially this time of year to recognize is the concept of community and how it's so valuable for like all of us, even not to say like it's not important for one group of people or over another. I'm just saying like
yeah.
the concept of community is such an important one to embrace. And I think it would help many people to avoid that idea of this concept of isolation and this like feeling of isolation,
Hmm.
if you were to just spend a little time, like reaching out, that's another a huge thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like I can't tell you how many people when they found out that the kids, that Jax tested positive and then I test, how many
Right.
people like reached out and were like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. You need anything while I'm there? Like, just little things like that, you know, that idea of like pay it forward, because that kind of stuff comes back to you and in the long run. And the concept of community is so important to avoid isolation, especially now. And I think that is something we like lose track of in
Hmm.
the day to day, like we're so busy doing things that we forget to like step back and yeah, like in tandem with like what you're saying about like mindfulness and we talk about gratitude all the time here, right? But
Hmm.
but community is really important to develop.
Yeah. Absolutely. And and they'll all say when they look back, they can all mention people that are less fortunate than them now, right? Like last year or maybe the year before that, they were living on the streets with nothing. So go back and be of service to the person living on the street now. Serve them a meal, do something, you know what I mean? So yeah, that service to others is huge. And they don't, a lot of people don't realize how just being of service to others really helps you and helps strengthen you over time.
Yeah.
Um, the
And
other thing,
it doesn't have to be big things either, right? I
no,
mean, that's the other thing. Like I feel like just reaching out to people that are in a tough spot, or
hmm
you know like just and that is service enough, especially now, like
yep.
just touching base with somebody. Like I saw the commercial. Gosh, I can't think of his name. He's the guy, he's got like a show on Comedy Central now. I want to say his name's like the God Charlemagne or some crazy thing like that. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yes.
And there's a commercial with him in it, and he talks about how like just reaching out to people is like one of the things he does. Is like
Yeah,
just contacting like people that he's known for his whole life or
yep,
whatever. Oh, I heard so and so is having a rough time, and just calling and being like, hey, what do you need? Like, because that could be at the moment when people most need it.
yep,
So
yeah.
that's important. Yeah.
And the other thing in conjunction with that is, when you sit there and you're like stuck and you're really stuck and isolated, or you're thinking about the holidays and you're thinking about the holidays past, or you're missing family and friends, I ask them to sit there with a piece of paper and list all the things that they're grateful for, and don't stop. Don't stop. Think of everything, and chances are you have so much to be grateful for. So focus on all of that, because it's so easy to be consumed by all the bullshit, all the stuff that means nothing. We can focus on what we don't have, what we should have, all that stuff. But they've come so far. Their journeys have been so tough, and they've fought to get here, that sometimes they need a reminder with a fresh blank piece of paper and just write it all down. And then it's like, oh, like a release, like, okay, it put it all into perspective. Something as simple as that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this really awesome thing when I was because I was thinking about this since you and I had been talking about it, and sharing gratitude with the kids in my classes, because I think it would be awesome for, especially teaching high school kids, for them to sit down and like, not necessarily, I mean, I don't want to look at it, but just for them to kind of look at. But I found this thing that's why I'm grateful, and it's like, like a fill in the blanks kind of thing, and it's just
hmm
like, I am grateful for my family because, and then it gives a blank, right? And then
hmm
something good that happened this week. I'm
Ooh,
grateful for my friendship with blank because, I'm grateful for who I am because, something silly that I'm grateful for, and then something else I'm grateful for. And then it's like a blank. So when I found this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And it's such a accessible way to look at gratitude without, because I think, here's a blank piece of paper and fill that out, like write down everything you're grateful for, is like overwhelming the first time you do it,
hmm
because you're like, you don't you're looking for parameters. If you're like me, you're looking for rules. Like, what are the
yeah,
rules to this exercise you're giving me? And unless you have somebody there to like give you those, say to you, there are no parameters. Like, you can be grateful for everything and anything, like down to the warm slipper socks you're wearing, to the, you know what I mean, all the way
yeah,
to the love of your life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can be everything.
yeah.
But I think that the looking at it from this perspective of, here's like fill in the blanks, tell me what you're grateful for.
I want
um
you to send that to me, because I want to
I
do.
will.
I do gratitude at the end of I do 3 groups a week, and
Yeah.
the guys don't leave my groups without saying gratitude. So they all have to name at least one thing. Sometimes I do two things, and sometimes I get very specific. But yeah, they do gratitude at the end of each one of my
Oh, I'm
groups.
sure they love it.
Mm, they do. They do.
um, but I thought that was kind of cool. I found it and I was like, oh, I'm definitely doing this with my kids at school. So, oh
I'll
God.
totally make the guys do that too. Like I would
Yeah.
love to do that.
Oh, I'm sure they'll love it.
Uh-huh. They will.
Um, so what other tips and tricks, what other things that do you think we should share with our friends about combating isolation, combating this feeling of, I don't know, being disconnected even?
So my big thing for the guys is definitely because for them, I think in a lot of senses, they get in their own ways and get themselves all worked up, right? So for me, when I talk to them, a lot of it is based on the anxiety and depression, the mental health side of it too. So it's always based around exercise and meditation and the gratitude, going to groups, finding a sponsor, finding a trusted friend, like somebody you can really talk to and engage with, or talking to your counselor if you have a hard time trusting people, just have that honest conversation. Um, that's really knowing that you're not like ever alone, because a lot of people think that they're alone in a lot of what they do. Um, and they're truly not, because like the next person feels they're alone too. And we're
Right.
all in this together. And the more we realize that and we attend groups and talk about it, the better off we'll be. Again, connecting through service, being of service to others, big ways, small ways, whatever works. Therapy. I'll always recommend therapy. Therapy is a huge way to get through the feelings of isolation.
Hmm.
Um, Also, something that is not realized as often as we should is during this time, our exposure to like outdoors and sunlight, natural sunlight, is less. So,
Hmm.
that has a huge
Yeah.
impact on our mental health. Depression rates elevate. So, try, even though it's cold as shit, bundle up and get your ass out there, get some natural
Fresh
light
air.
in. Yeah,
Yep.
get some fresh air. And you know try and find local events as much as possible. There's like a Natural Awakenings magazine by us. It's a free magazine in outside of like the supermarket. I just went to the farmers market today and it was outside for free. Go to free events and like
Yeah.
ones that intrigue you or interesting to you, and go.
Right.
You don't have to pay any money.
Yeah.
Just go and participate. So
Yeah, I always find that I am like I can get into like a good mood or whatever get in the season or just by engaging with other people who are there. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like getting out and just seeing. I love going to see other people's Christmas decorations. It's like
yeah,
like driving around neighborhoods and like looking at the lights and stuff. It always makes me feel like you know,
yeah,
better. I don't know. Even in a bad spot, I'm always like, oh, look at
yeah.
the big Rudolph. Like, I don't know, like, but for some reason, that's something that, helps me to kind of feel um the spirit of
Mhm.
like, not feeling like a miserable or upset or, overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah. It's hard though, because some people don't get like that. Like
Yeah.
it's hard. And I'm noticing that, especially around the facility. Like some people don't get whooped up about that. And the most important thing is feel whatever feeling it is, and you got to process it and go through it. Not
Yep.
everybody else is going to get whooped up about Rudolph like you and I will, but at the same time, like behind the scenes or in front of the scenes. Like, let's process that. What are you feeling? What about Rudolph is pissing you off? Like, let's talk about it. What kind of triggers are happening right now? Like, what do you need to talk about? Because you don't want to just keep sitting on it and feeling miserable around the holidays or around any other time that may be a trigger to you either. You just kind of want to work through it so you're you're processing it and moving forward. You don't want to get stuck in anything.
Right.
Um, so that's important. And then you got the kids, which are totally different. I looked up some stuff for kids too. The kids I had to look up because I know them less than I do adults anymore.
Well,
You know the kids
they're
better.
different. They're a different breed, is for sure. That is
Yeah.
for sure. So, I think, with kids, it's very similar to adults in terms of, managing uh isolation, managing that the feelings that start to arise when it comes to isolation, things like that. I mean, they look different though. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like the emotions may come across as something totally different than what it really is feeling, than what the person really is feeling. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
kids are often better at acting out when it
Hmm.
comes to that kind of thing, instead of um expressing in any other manageable way. I guess
Yeah.
is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
um but I also think, it depends on the age too, because I deal with teenagers on a daily basis that when they are struggling, um some of them just shut down, like avoidance of things that bother them. And that kind of behavior is almost uh almost more difficult to pick out. You know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
shutting down is like, they know how to do it in a way that is, they can fly under the radar,
Yeah.
which makes it a little unnerving, because then you don't know if they're getting help at all, in any
Yep.
way, because who's noticing it, if at all. So,
Right.
um but again, I think, like I said, a lot of the management of behaviors are similar as with adults. Like, I mean, you and I have talked before about like Rachel with her anger, and managing her anger is something that she's learning how to do now at 7,
Hmm.
that, you know, I didn't have to work on with Jax, because he didn't express the way that she did. He'd get angry and he would manage it in different ways. She gets angry and it's like, whoo,
Yeah.
like, so we're working through that.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I just think a big part of dealing with it, like from the school perspective, is different too. Like, in my specific district where I'm at, I only see kids for 40 minutes a day. So my interaction with them is limited, even though it's every single day I see them. They're seeing multiple teachers every single day. So, you know, keying in on each kid and figuring out if something's going on, and helping them to cope is a struggle, because the resources are limited in that type of circumstance. um I don't know.
Yeah.
I
It's harder when they get older because they're switching so much. They're switching the classroom so much versus just being in one classroom or maybe two classrooms a day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the stress, at this age, at the teenage years, I think the stress is considerably higher,
Hmm.
um because of all the variety of things that are going on in their lives, and the desire to be independent, and the desire to, not need to rely upon their parents, but then they still really do need to rely on them quite a bit. It's like,
Yeah.
it's a struggle just at this age in general. And so when that connection with their peers and their community is cut off, because of things like quarantining or isolation because of illness, like in
Right.
this circumstance, I mean, that's a huge impact on those kids.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish I could say I knew how to fix it, but I don't know if I know how to fix it as much as I know who to go to help the kids, in
Yeah.
terms of our system. But
I think the gist of everything that I saw was maintaining routines and normalcy as much as possible because they look to the teachers for that, and to be mindful of the fact that just like COVID with the holidays, like it's all distractions and it's all stress on them too, whether it's good or bad stress. Like the holidays could be good or bad. It could bring up bad things at home too for
yeah,
some families, whereas for other families, it could be good stress.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
COVID, I don't know how it could be. I mean, not necessarily good stress, but it may be okay for like your family, it's fine. But for another family, it could be devastating, right?
right,
Financially, mentally, everything.
right.
It's all in like the kids looking to teachers and administrative staff to um, keep the routine and keep everything as normal as possible for them when they're in the classroom and not have as many distractions because kids rear off, they're easily distracted. So the more
Yeah,
normal you can keep it, the better off they'll be in the
right,
long run in not getting so distracted because there's chaos outside of it everywhere else.
right.
But then when you talk about quarantine and stuff, then it's hard in the classroom because you're not in the classroom. Then it becomes a virtual classroom. So yeah, there's so many complexities and it's so dynamic anymore that how do you figure it all out? I don't know. It's just kind of learning on the fly.
Yeah. How
You
about it?
just, yeah.
And some of the kids, that I've come in contact with that do end up in these situations where they're isolated, actually prefer it because they don't want to have to come to school because they're more concerned about getting sick
Hmm.
than, you know. So it's a real like every single kid has their own kind of needs when it comes to these circumstances.
Yep.
Um, and like, a lot of what you have mentioned in terms of like keeping routines and stuff, the same thing is true for like caring for yourself through it, like, and
Hmm.
I try to remind the kids, like, that's one thing that we always talk about. Make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure you're getting enough
Hmm.
sleep. You look like you didn't get enough sleep last night. Did you get enough sleep? Like, what's going on? Even just having those conversations so they know that like somebody's paying attention to them, I think also engages their willingness to care for themselves, like, oh, somebody else cares about me, like, I guess
Right.
I'm, that also seems to help a lot. And it allows for the kids to feel like um there's value in it. If someone else is talking about it, then there must be value in this, you know
Absolutely.
so that's another thing that I, you know again, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not trained in that, but I certainly have experience with recognizing like the teenage angst and
Yeah.
the teenage experience. So that's a that's a big thing, is that just the making connections. And I think, as parents, I think that's a big part of it too, is not trying to produce the answer for our kids. It's to just engage so they know that you're there and that you're trying to help them. You're not there to tell them what to do all the time,
Hmm.
because that's a big thing too, even with my kids, now at the ages they're at, they're starting to get that independence and like want me to leave them alone about things,
Yeah.
which I get. I mean, I remember telling my mom to like leave me alone. I've had enough
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
So um yeah, so I think that's uh really important too, is just engaging and letting people know that you care. That'll help your kids too get through these types of things, and believing them when they say things
Hmm.
about how they feel, like not disregarding or say to them things like oh, it could be worse, just let that go, that kind of thing, like
Right.
engaging with their feelings. And because their feelings are their feelings. Like you can't
Yeah.
tell them that they're not feeling it. So I think that's an important one too. So
Agreed. Don't minimize their feelings at
absolutely.
all, ever.
Absolutely. Because then they'll be, 42 years old trying to figure out what this feeling is and how the hell
Mm-hmm.
do I deal with it?
Yep.
Like,
Agreed.
um,
Yeah.
right? That's the truth too.
Yep.
So we're here. We both can, you know, empathize for sure with this whole isolation and quarantine and you know, can see that it is a thing. It is for sure a thing, and something that I think we just want people to know that you're not alone. None of you out
No.
there, you are not alone.
Mm-mm. Ever.
You got any final wisdom to share, my friend?
I don't. I was actually gonna switch to a different facial, whatever. I was gonna take off my mustache.
Should
My
we
wisdom is done for the evening.
should we share some love with them?
I was just going to take off the mustache, but I'm leaving the eyebrows because I'm really digging the eyebrows. And
We just had a very serious conversation with all of
yes,
those crazy things on our
wait,
face.
hold on. I don't like that one.
Yeah, I don't like not seeing your eyes.
No, I
Oh,
gotta
that
show the
one's
eyebrows. Look at the
that's a good one.
hydrangea. I like
Nice hydrangea.
hydrangeas. Yeah. So, and we could do maybe butterflies. They're weird looking, but there we
Oh, they're
go. Oh, wait,
cute.
you're doing Christmas lights. I'll be the reindeer.
Nice. That's it.
What's up? There we
Booyah.
go. All right. So,
So as we move into this Christmas holiday, or I mean, I guess technically on the day that we're recording this, Hanukkah starts tonight at sundown too. So
yes.
there's lots of holiday festivities that are ensuing. But we just want everybody to know you guys are not alone, and Catch Me on the Exhale will be around, and reach out to us through all our social media channels or whatever you want. And we'll get back to you because, we love this stuff. So we're here, bro.
Yeah. Yes, we
Uh,
are.
all right, my friend. I guess we should wrap it up, right?
Indeed.
All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next exhale.
Deuces.
Deuces.